And good morning and welcome to the VSA Capital 5-Minute Morning Miner on Friday, April the 8th. It's Friday, the end of the week. Hope we're all looking forward to a nice weekend. Morning, Ollie. How are you? Good weekend lined up?
Yeah, all good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, no, I've got golf tomorrow with my son. I've got tennis on Sunday. There's loads of sport to watch. My wife's down at my house in Cornwall, so I'm all by myself. So I'm going to have a pretty good weekend, aren't I?
Excellent. Yeah, my parents are moving house, so I'm going to go and pinch the things that they don't have space for.
And you do have space. That's an interesting one. Right, let's turn to mine. Look, it's April the 8th, which means it's the first day of dealings for First Tin, which has just come to the market. Don't know if you've got any comment you'd like to make there, Ollie?
Well, we've talked a lot recently about tin market generally, and the backdrop is obviously extremely positive. The market fundamentals are there. There's very little in terms of new supply that can come on in a big way in the last tin bull market. Myanmar was the swing supplier, but the expectation is that they don't have significant incremental supply to bring on this time, and all of the projects that we can see out there at the moment, only have sort of 1,000 to 2,000 tons that they can bring on in the short term, and even that is likely to take a couple of years. So these low capex projects in jurisdictions which are sort of outside the grip of China really fit into the new narrative for commodity supply chains.
Yeah, look, I mean, getting an IPO away at the moment is pretty good. We weren't involved at all, but well done to those that did it. Obviously, it's got Mark Thompson involved, who is sort of the king of tin. It's also one of the reasons why we're so excited about Cornwall and the opportunities for tin down there. And of course, don't forget, Tungsten West is 20% tin. And that's the one that's looking stunningly cheap at the moment, as we've said on a few times now. Anyway, there we go. What else you got today, Ollie?
News out from Galane Lithium in Argentina, one of the Shanghai Mining Club members. They have got some drilling results back, which look very positive. It's a particular step out hole that takes them 800 meters from their existing, the sort of furthest existing drill hole, and has confirmed a 450 meter sequence of sands that could hold brines, but likely to be bearing lithium. So that's a very strong indicator that they're going to be able to expand the resource in Q3 as planned. I think what's interesting here is we've seen this before with a couple of other projects we've looked at in the past, is that when you look at these sort of satellite images for the salars, where you see the end of the salt flat, that isn't necessarily the end of the mineralization subsurface, and the sands and lithium brines actually sort of continue to extend out underneath what looks like the mountainous valley on the surface, and I think that's where one of these holes was drilled. So that's quite exciting for how much additional potential there is here, and Galane, obviously one of the few independent lithium projects still standing in South America.
I mean, I think, certainly for the next sort of 5 years, South America is probably where the majority of, or the easy wins in lithium are going to come, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you can, if one DLE project comes online that shows that it works, that transforms the evaporation salars, and completely changes the economics of the entire sector.
Okay, interesting. Anything else?
A little bit from Ukraine and Russia. Polymetal's auditors resigned.
Yeah, that's like Deloitte's wanted straight out, didn't they? With immediate effect.
Yeah. Whereas Ferexpo have reported that they've managed to maintain production more or less flat year on year at 2.7 million tons, although it was 13% lower Q on Q. Production isn't the same as sales, and logistics are being disrupted. Sorry, not significantly. 2.6 million tons were shipped in the quarter. That's via rail. Obviously, towards the end of the quarter since the invasion, the sea routes have been closed, so they're only able to rail it back via Europe. But generally, they do appear to be coping with the situation, which is reasonably positive. But obviously, the risk profile of that company has changed dramatically.
Yeah, I thought they started this statement off rather nicely. I'll just read out the first sentence because I think it sort of sums everything up. But what they said was that the situation in Ukraine remains complex. In accordance with the government of Ukraine's request for economic activities to continue, the group will continue to produce and transport its products as long as the capability is in place and it remains safe to do so. It sort of sums it up rather well, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they made a comment about having, been able to continue to pay everyone on time, which is, yeah.
I think we're now in the 44th day of war or something, is it? And NATO is now, I think, going to start giving Ukraine some more, certainly defensive weapons. I'm not sure it's moved quite on to extra aircraft yet. I mean, well done to Ukraine. I think they're putting up, amazing defense, and it really is. Russia, frankly, needs to be put right firmly in its place. That country shouldn't be allowed to exist almost. It's disgraceful what they're doing. Certainly, Ukraine has the full support of VSA Capital. There you go. That's one way to end the podcast on a Friday. On that note, I hope everyone has a good weekend, and we'll all speak again next week.
Yeah, have a good weekend. Speak to you Monday. Cheers.